The cheap fluorescent lights of Joe's diner flickered as Amy Wheeler picked at her French fries. It was their Friday ritual. $2 burgers and endless refills of watery coffee. Nathan watched his 16-year-old sister from across the worn vinyl booth, trying to hide his growing concern. She'd barely touched her food. "You okay, kiddo?" he asked, forcing a smile. Amy looked up, her face unusually pale under the harsh lighting. "I'm fine, just tired." "Heir to wealth. You should eat your burger before it gets cold." Nathan knew that look. It was the same one their mother had worn in her final days, trying to be strong, hiding the pain. Before he could press further, Amy's hand flew to her chest. The fork clattered against the ceramic plate. "Nathan," she whispered, eyes wide with fear. Then she collapsed. "Amy." He lunged across the table as she slumped sideways in the booth. "Someone call 911." The next hour was a blur of sirens, emergency rooms, and fluorescent-lit corridors that smelled of antiseptic and fear. Nathan paced the waiting room, his phone buzzing with yet another message from his landlord. "Final notice of eviction," the subject line read. He ignored it. "Mr. Wheeler?" A tired-looking doctor appeared, clipboard in hand. "Your sister's condition is more serious than we thought. The initial tests show she needs immediate cardiac surgery." Nathan's throat went dry. "How much?" Given the complexity and specialists required, the doctor hesitated. "Around $150,000, a number hit him. Like a physical blow. After their mother's cancer treatments and funeral costs, he was already drowning in debt. The meager insurance from his temp jobs wouldn't cover a fraction of this. There has to be another option," he pleaded. "Without the surgery, that." The doctor's expression said everything. Back in the dimly lit hospital room, Nathan watched Amy sleep. She looked so small in the hospital bed, just like Sarah had 5 years ago. He'd made a promise at their mother's funeral to protect Amy, to give her the life their mother had sacrificed everything for. Now he was failing them both. His phone buzzed again. It said. Probably another bill collector. But the subject line caught his eye. From Maxwell Investments subject. Immediate interview opportunity. Tomorrow 9 a.m. Nathan's heart skipped. Maxwell Investments was one of the largest financial firms in the country. He'd submitted countless applications there, along with 236 other companies in the past 8 months. Why now? A soft whimper drew his attention. "Harry." Amy's eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "Mom?" she whispered. "Mom was here." "It was just a dream, sweetie," Nathan said softly, squeezing her hand. "No, Harry." Amy's voice was distant. "She had a message," she said. "Everything's going to change tomorrow. The truth. In the black frame." Before Nathan could ask what she meant, Amy drifted back to sleep. An elderly nurse changing the IV bags gave him a strange look. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "when destinies are about to intertwine, those who've passed send us signs." She patted Amy's hand. "Your mother's watching over you both." Nathan wasn't sure he believed in signs or destiny. But as thunder rumbled outside and rain began pelting the hospital windows, he opened the email from Maxwell Investments. He had no idea that in less than 24 hours, his entire world would turn upside down, and his mother's greatest secret would finally come to light. The Maxwell Investments building pierced the Manhattan skyline like a blade of steel and glass. Nathan tugged at his thrift store suit, painfully aware of the frayed cuff and missing button. After a sleepless night at the hospital, he'd barely had time to change. "Delivery entrance is around back," the security guard called out as Nathan approached the gleaming lobby desk. Several well-dressed executives smirked. "I'm here for an interview," Nathan said, shoulders straight despite the flush creeping up his neck. "Nathan Wheeler, 9 a.m. with Mr. Maxwell." The guard's eyebrows shot up. Sure you are, buddy. And I'm having lunch with Warren Buffett." "There must be some mistake," Nathan started, but a cold voice cut through the marble lobby. "Is there a problem here?" Thomas Maxwell's presence commanded attention. Tall, silver-haired, and impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Nathan's yearly rent. He radiated authority and disdain. "This person claims to have an appointment with Robert," the guard explained. Thomas's steel-gray eyes dissected Nathan. "Ah, yes, the mysterious Mr. Wheeler. Follow me." The elevator ride was excruciating. Thomas stood uncomfortably close, as if trying to make Nathan shrink into the corner. "Fascinating," Thomas said, breaking the silence. 237 job applications in 8 months. quite persistent, aren't we? Or perhaps desperate." Nathan's blood ran cold. How did he know that? The elevator doors opened to reveal a stunning woman about Nathan's age. Her dark hair swept into an elegant knot. Rebecca Maxwell. Nathan recognized her from company press photos. Her eyes met his briefly, a flash of judgment crossing her features before she turned away. "Uncle Thomas, the Singapore call," she started. "Taking care of a small situation first." Thomas cut her off, steering Nathan toward the executive suite. Now, Nathan caught his reflection in the polished walls. He looked as out of place as he felt. What was he even doing here? Amy needed him, not this wild goose chase. "Wait here," Thomas commanded, leaving Nathan in an opulent waiting area. Through the glass walls, he watched Thomas and Rebecca in an animated discussion, both shooting glances his way. Finally, a different assistant led him into Robert Maxwell's corner office. Nathan's eyes swept the space automatically. Floor-to-ceiling windows, priceless art, success breathing from every surface. Then his heart stopped. There, among dozens of black-frame photographs on the wall, was his mother's face. Sarah Wheeler, young and radiant, her arms around a small boy by a swimming pool. Nathan would have recognized that smile anywhere. It was the same one she'd worn in the single photo he had of her from his childhood. Quite a shock, isn't it? Nathan spun around. Robert Maxwell stood in the doorway, older than in his publicity photos, but with the same commanding presence as his brother. Unlike Thomas's cold calculation, though, Robert's eyes held something else. Recognition. Pain. "Your mother," Robert started, but the door burst open. "This ends now," Thomas thundered, waving a folder. "I won't let you destroy everything we've built over some misplaced sentimentality, Robert. This boy and his mother are not what you think." Rebecca appeared in the doorway behind him, her expression unreadable as her eyes darted between the photo and Nathan's face. Robert's jaw tightened. "Sarah Wheeler saved my life, Thomas, and it's time her son knew the truth." The thunder cracked outside, and Nathan's phone buzzed in his pocket. The hospital's number, but before he could reach for it, Thomas slapped the folder down on Robert's desk. Then perhaps, Thomas said with a cold smile, "we should start with the truth about what his precious mother really did." Thomas's words hung in the air like smoke. Robert Maxwell's face hardened as he reached for the folder, but his hands trembled slightly. Something that didn't escape Nathan's notice. "Perhaps," Robert said quietly, "we should start with what happened 23 years ago." The office seemed to darken as Robert moved to the wall of photographs. "July 15th, 1999. I was 8 years old." His fingers traced the frame of Sarah's photo. "The day your mother became more than just our housekeeper." "Robert, don't," Thomas warned. "I was showing off," Robert continued, ignoring his brother. "My parents were hosting a garden party to list. Important clients, politicians, the usual circus. I'd been taking swimming lessons and wanted everyone to see how long I could hold my breath." Nathan's phone buzzed again. The hospital. His heart raced, but something in Robert's voice held him there. "The pool filter malfunctioned. My foot got caught." Robert's voice cracked. "Listen, is Heba." None of the guests even noticed. They were too busy networking, drinking champagne. But Sarah, she always watched me, always knew when something was wrong. The memory played across his face like a movie. She didn't hesitate. Designer dresses and jewelry everywhere. But she jumped right in. Ruined her only good uniform. "When she pulled me up, I wasn't breathing." "A touching story," Thomas interrupted, "but irrelevant too." "She gave me CPR," Robert pressed on. "Saved my life, but that's not all she saved that day." He turned to Nathan. "Your mother kept another secret, one that would have destroyed our family." Nathan's phone buzzed a third time. Robert. Rebecca noticed his distress. "Uncle Robert," she said softly, "perhaps we should let Mr. Wheeler take that call first." "No need." Thomas smiled coldly, holding up his own phone. "I just received an update from St. Mary's Hospital. Young Amy is comfortable." Nathan's blood froze. "What did you do?" "Merely ensured she's receiving the best care," Thomas replied. "For now." Rebecca's eyes widened. "Uncle Thomas, you didn't." "I simply made sure Mr. Wheeler understands what's at stake." Thomas opened his folder. "Speaking of stakes, Robert, shall we discuss what else I found in Sarah Wheeler's past?" He extracted a document, yellowed with age. 3 months after the pool incident, Sarah Wheeler accessed confidential Maxwell family documents. A week later, $10 million mysteriously vanished from our father's private accounts. That's a lie, Nathan snapped. Is it? Thomas produced more papers. Wire transfers, offshore accounts, all traced back to your mother's hometown bank. Quite sophisticated for a housekeeper, wouldn't you say? Robert's face had gone pale. Where did you get those? I've been investigating Sarah Wheeler for months, Thomas revealed. Ever since you first started tracking down her son, did you really think I wouldn't notice the private investigators? The background checks? Rebecca moved closer to the desk, her professional facade cracking as she studied the documents. These records, they're incomplete. Look at the date stamps. A commotion outside interrupted her. A nurse appeared in the doorway, out of breath. Mr. Wheeler? Your sister's asking for you. She's having visions, talking about your mother. He's not going anywhere, Thomas declared, but Nathan was already moving. Nathan, wait! Robert called out. There's something else you need to know about the day your mother saved me. About what she saw in my father's study. But Nathan was already running for the elevator behind him. He heard Rebecca's sharp intake of breath as she apparently found something in the documents. Thomas's voice carried down the hallway. Robert, if you tell him the truth about the inheritance, I swear. The elevator doors closed, leaving Nathan alone with his racing thoughts. His phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Your mother left something in the old house, behind the loose brick in the garden wall. Find it before they do. Our face. The elevator descended, and with it, the weight of generations of secrets began to surface. Like bodies rising from the depths of that long-ago pool, Nathan's hands trembled as he knelt in front of the crumbling garden wall. The old Wheeler family home, now a shadow of its former self, loomed behind him in the fading light. He shouldn't be here. Amy needed him at the hospital, but Rebecca's text had ignited something he couldn't ignore. The third brick from the bottom shifted easily, revealing a cavity. Inside, wrapped in weathered plastic, lay a leather-bound book. His mother's diary. His phone buzzed. Rebecca Maxwell. Don't trust anything my uncle says about your mother. I found discrepancies in those documents. Meet me. A car door slammed nearby. Nathan shoved the diary into his jacket and replaced the brick. Mr. Wheeler? A familiar voice called out. Such an interesting choice of evening activities. James Crawford emerged from a black Mercedes. His designer suit and perfectly coiffed hair, a stark contrast to the rundown neighborhood. Nathan recognized him from financial magazines. Rebecca's ex-fiancé and rising star at Goldman Sachs. Rebecca's been asking questions about you, James said, casually adjusting his Rolex. I don't like questions about the past, especially when they involve my future wife. Ex-fiancé, Nathan corrected, standing his ground. James's smile didn't reach his eyes. Temporary situation, like your sister's medical care. The threat hung in the air. Take of the K. Nathan's phone buzzed again. The hospital. You should take that, James suggested. I heard IC units can be unpredictable. Nathan's hand curled into a fist, but his phone kept buzzing. Finally, he answered. Mr. Wheeler? A nurse's urgent voice. Amy's asking for you. She had another vision of your mother. She's quite agitated. On my way. Nathan pushed past James, who caught his arm. Word of advice? Poor boys don't belong in the Maxwell world. Walk away now, while you still can. At the hospital, Nathan found Thomas Maxwell leaving Amy's room this day. Just checking on our investment, Thomas smiled. She's quite special, your sister. Keeps talking about your mother's message. Fascinating what medication can do to young minds. Inside, Amy was pale but alert. You found it, didn't you? Mom's diary. She told me you would. Amy, you need rest. She came to me again, Nathan. Mom said we have to open the diary at exactly midnight. Something about a timer and old bank vault. A knock interrupted them. Rebecca stood in the doorway, looking uncertain. I hope I'm not intruding. I brought some food and… She trailed off, noticing the diary partially visible in Nathan's jacket. Before anyone could speak, Amy gasped. You're her! The one from Mom's last prediction! Rebecca stepped closer. What prediction? Amy, that's enough, Nathan interrupted. But his sister's eyes had that distant look again. Mom said, the truth will heal both families. But first must come the storm. Look for the girl with the phoenix ring. Rebecca's hand flew to the antique ring on her necklace. A golden phoenix. That's impossible, she whispered. This was my grandmother's ring. No one outside the family knows about. Well, isn't this cozy? Thomas stood in the doorway, James Crawford beside him. "Rebecca, your father's worried. Let's go." Thomas's eyes fixed on Nathan's jacket. "And Mr. Wheeler, I believe you have something that belongs to us." "The diary belongs to my family," Nathan said firmly. "Everything the Wheelers have belongs to us," Thomas replied, "including, if you recall, your sister's continuing medical care." Nathan felt the weight of the diary against his chest, his mother's secrets burning like fire. Somewhere in these pages lay the truth that could save or destroy them all. The wall clock showed 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes until midnight. Amy's monitors began beeping erratically. "Nathan," she whispered, "it's starting." The storm Mom warned us about. Thunder cracked outside as a nurse rushed in, pushing them all aside. Behind her, through the window, Nathan caught a glimpse of an old woman watching from the hospital garden. Exactly where Sarah used to stand during her own treatment, but when he blinked, she was gone. The diary's pages crackled as Nathan turned them, his heart pounding in sync with Amy's monitors. Midnight had come and gone, but what they'd found in their mother's writing shook him to his core. "June 15th, 1999, he read aloud to Rebecca, who sat beside Amy's hospital bed. "The day I discovered the truth about Maxwell Sr.'s empire. The money isn't clean. The foundations are built on blood." "That's absurd," Rebecca whispered, but her voice trembled. "My grandfather was a monster," Thomas finished, striding into the room. "Is that what Sarah's precious diary claims? Let me share what I found about your sainted mother, Nathan." He threw a file onto Amy's bed. Crime scene photos spilled out. A bank vault, shattered glass, blood. December 1999, a robbery at First National. $3 million in bearer bonds stolen. The sole witness? Sarah Wheeler. "She reported the crime," Nathan protested. "Stages." Thomas produced a surveillance photo. A woman in a cleaner's uniform, face half hidden, placing something in a safety deposit box. Taken 2 days after the robbery. The box was registered to Sarah Wheeler. Amy's monitors spiked. "Nathan, Mom's trying to tell me something." Rebecca grabbed the photos. "Wait, look at the date stamp. Sponsor. These are digital photos in 1999? That technology wasn't enough." Thomas cut her off as alarms started blaring. Amy's pulse was racing dangerously, and pulse. Nurses rushed in. "Her heart can't take this stress. Everyone out." "Nathan," Amy called weakly. "The box," she said. "Remember the box?" Thomas's phone buzzed. His face darkened. It seems someone just accessed safety deposit box 2317 at First National." "Robert, you fool." He stormed out, but not before issuing a command to someone on his phone. "Move her to County General, immediately." "You can't," Nathan protested. That hospital doesn't have the facilities. Your sister's care depends entirely on your cooperation, Mr. Wheeler. Think carefully about your next move." Rebecca stepped between them. "Uncle Thomas, this is wrong." "Wrong?" Thomas laughed bitterly. "You want to know what's wrong? His death. Your father's obsession with the Wheelers is destroying our family. Ask yourself why he really broke up your engagement to James." Rebecca paled. "What are you talking about?" "Stay. Show her," James said from the doorway, holding up his phone. "Show her what her father's been hiding." On the screen, Robert Maxwell, 20 years younger, holding a baby. Sarah Wheeler beside him, beaming. "DNA doesn't lie, Rebecca," Thomas said softly. "Your father's been trying to make amends to his secret family, Mr. Wheeler. Haven't you wondered why he's so invested in Nathan?" I'm not." Nathan stumbled over the words. "Nathan Wheeler isn't just Sarah's son," James announced. "Make up the words." "He's a Maxwell." The room spun. Amy's monitors went wild. "Code blue! Code blue!" As medical staff swarmed the room, Rebecca grabbed Nathan's arm. "The diary!" dismayed. What else did Sarah write about that day at the pool? But Nathan was already flipping through pages. His hands stopped at an entry, his face draining of color. Sped. "She wasn't just a witness to the bank robbery," he whispered. "She was protecting something. Evidence of where the Maxwell fortune really came from." "Dad." He choked on the word. "Robert knew. That's why he sent her away. To protect her." Through the chaos, Amy's voice somehow reached them. "The video." Listen, parrot. Mom said find the video. "What video?" Rebecca demanded. Before Nathan could answer, Thomas returned, security guards flanking him. "I tried to handle this quietly," he said. "But now, take him, and get that diary." As guards grabbed Nathan, a nurse screamed. Amy had flatlined. Through the window, storm clouds gathered, and in Nathan's pocket, Sarah's diary burned with one final secret: coordinates to a safety deposit box in a bank that no longer existed. Clear! The doctor pressed the defibrillator to Amy's chest as Nathan watched helplessly through the glass. Each second stretched like an eternity. Through tears, he pulled Sarah's diary from his pocket, a sealed envelope falling from between its pages. His mother's handwriting. Open only when everything seems lost. We have a rhythm. Nathan's knees nearly buckled with relief, but as the medical team stabilized Amy, Thomas's security guards approached. Mr. Wheeler, come with us. Wait! Rebecca's voice rang with unexpected authority. Uncle Thomas, I found something. She held up her phone, displaying financial records. These surveillance photos are forgeries. The metadata proves it. Thomas's composed facade cracked slightly. Rebecca, don't interfere in things you don't understand. Like why Dad really broke off my engagement? Her phoenix ring caught the light as she turned to Nathan. Open the letter, now. With trembling fingers, Nathan broke the seal. My dearest children, if you're reading this, then everything I feared has come to pass. The truth about that night at First National Bank goes far deeper than a simple robbery. What I found in that vault wasn't money. It was proof. Maxwell Sr. didn't build his empire on investments. He built it on graves. The accidents that befell his business rivals. The mysterious disappearances. The offshore accounts filled with blood money. I found the ledger that proved it all. But there was something else in that vault. Something even more damning. A videotape. Robert discovered the truth that summer too. That's why his father tried to kill him. The pool incident was no accident. I didn't just save Robert's life that day. I helped him hide evidence that could have destroyed everything. But we were wrong to bury the truth. Now it falls to you, Nathan. The video is still out there, hidden where they'll never think to look. When you find it, you'll understand why Robert has watched over you all these years. Why he had to send us away to protect us. Trust Rebecca. She has her grandmother's heart. The phoenix ring she wears holds more than family history. It holds. The letter cut off abruptly as James snatched it from Nathan's hands. Always so dramatic, Sarah was, he sneered, but his face had gone pale. You knew, Rebecca whispered. All this time, you knew what my grandfather had done. What I know, James replied coldly, is that some secrets are worth killing for. Erunk. Ask your uncle. Thomas's phone buzzed. His expression shifted from anger to fear. Robert's at the old bank. He found the tape. Behind them, Amy stirred. My kid. Mom says, remember the music box, the one that played at midnight? Rebecca gasped. My grandmother's music box, the one shaped like a phoenix. Get them out of here, Thomas ordered the guards. And find that music box. But Nathan had already spotted it. There on Amy's bedside table. Definitely not there before. An antique phoenix-shaped music box. Its clockwork ticking toward midnight. Don't! James lunged for it. Too late. A tiny phoenix spread its wings as the clock struck 12, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, a safe deposit box key and a photo that made Thomas stagger back. His. Impossible, he breathed. She's supposed to be dead. Through the window, lightning illuminated a figure in the rain. A woman both Thomas and James clearly recognized. When thunder cracked, Rebecca screamed. The phoenix ring on her necklace had begun to glow. The Maxwell Foundation's annual charity gala glittered with wealth and power. Nathan adjusted his borrowed tuxedo, feeling like an imposter among Manhattan's elite. 30 minutes until James's speech. 30 minutes to find the vault key Rebecca had mentioned. Lost, Mr. Wheeler? James appeared beside him, champagne in hand. Or should I say, Mr. Maxwell? I know about the video. Nathan kept his voice low. The one showing what really happened to Maxwell Sr.'s rivals. Careful. James smiled, but his knuckles whitened around his glass. Wouldn't want anything happening to that experimental treatment Amy's receiving. Across the ballroom, Rebecca caught Nathan's eye. She wore a stunning red gown, her phoenix ring now on her finger. Their signal that she'd found something. She'll never love you. James followed his gaze. A Maxwell doesn't marry down, though I suppose you're technically a threat? Nathan turned to face him. Is that why you're working with Thomas? Afraid I'll claim my inheritance? James's polished facade cracked. You have no idea what's really at stake. The video isn't just about some old murders. It's... James. Thomas's voice cut through the tension. A word? As they stepped away, Nathan's phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Second letter found. Meet me in Father's office. Now. The executive floor was dark except for Robert's office. Rebecca stood by the wall safe, hands shaking. Read it. She thrust the letter at him. My son, Nathan began. By now you know part of the truth. But there's something else. The night of the robbery, I found 2 ledgers. One documented the murders. The other revealed. Don't! James burst in, face contorted. Rebecca, step away from him! I'm pregnant, she blurted out. The words hung in the air like suspended glass about to shatter. James staggered back as if struck. That's impossible. We never. It's Nathan's, she whispered. From that night after the hospital. Thunder cracked outside. Nathan's phone lit up. Amy's doctor. Years. Your sister's responding unexpectedly to treatment. The doctor sounded puzzled. Her latest tests show complete cellular regeneration. It's like something's healing her from inside. The phoenix rises, Rebecca murmured, her ring pulsing with a faint red glow. Suddenly, Thomas's voice echoed down the hall. The video's been found. Get everyone to the old bank vault. Now. James moved to block the door. You don't understand. That video will destroy thousands of lives. Some secrets have to stay buried. Like what really happened to my grandmother? Rebecca's voice shook. The accident that killed her after she discovered the truth? James went white. Behind him, Robert Maxwell appeared. The accident my father arranged, Robert said quietly. Just like he tried to arrange mine. Rebecca's ring flared brighter. From somewhere below came the distant notes of a Phoenix music box. It's starting, she grabbed Nathan's hand. What Mom's diary predicted. The night of revelation. Nathan's phone buzzed again. A text from Amy. Mom says go to the vault. The truth isn't what anyone thinks. P.S. I can see her now, standing right here. She's smiling through the office windows. Lightning illuminated the old bank building. And there, in its topmost window, a light flickered on. All this time, Robert said, we thought Sarah hid the video to protect our family's secrets. But she hid it to protect something far more precious. He turned to Nathan. Your real identity. The Phoenix ring blazed like fire as midnight struck. The old bank's marble halls echoed with footsteps as Nathan and Rebecca raced to the vault level. Behind them, James and Thomas's voices grew closer. Nathan's phone wouldn't stop buzzing, the hospital's number flashing urgently. But they had to reach the vault first, had to find what Sarah protected all those years. Looking for this? Thomas stepped out from the shadows, holding an aged VHS tape. I must admit, Sarah was clever, hiding it in plain sight, all these years. Security guards emerged from both corridors. James appeared, gun trained on Nathan. I'm sorry it came to this, James said. Rebecca, step away from him, now. I know what you did to my grandmother, Rebecca's voice shook. The diary told us everything. The diary? Thomas laughed. You mean this diary? He pulled Sarah's journal from his coat, then dropped it into a metal waste bin. A match flared. No! Nathan lunged forward, but guards grabbed him. Your mother was quite the storyteller. Thomas watched the pages catch fire. But some stories need to end. Nathan's phone buzzed again. This time, Thomas answered it. Ah, yes. Miss Amy Wheeler. His face darkened. What do you mean she's gone? Rebecca gasped. Nathan's heart stopped. Sir, a guard burst in. You need to see this. Gary gowned. He held up his phone, showing a news live stream. Amy Wheeler, standing outside the hospital in her gown, telling reporters about decades of Maxwell family crimes. Impossible, James whispered. She was sedated. Mom's with her, Nathan realized. She's been protecting Amy all along. Thomas's composure finally cracked. Get him out of here. And make sure the girl has an accident. No more Wheeler miracles. That's enough. Robert's voice boomed through the vault. He emerged from the shadows, holding something that made Thomas go pale. An old Super 8 camera. The video in Thomas's hand is a decoy, Robert said. Sarah knew you'd look for a VHS. But this, he held up the camera. This has been recording since the day our father died. Robert, think about what you're doing, Thomas pleaded. I have, for 23 years. Robert turned to Nathan. You want to know why I've watched over you? Why hid you away? Why Sarah had to hide you away? Look." He opened the camera's viewfinder. Inside wasn't a tape, but a birth certificate. Nathan's hands trembled as he read it. The spray. But before he could process the truth, alarms blared. Fire suppression systems activated, spraying the vault with chemicals. In the chaos, James grabbed Rebecca. "Time to end this family drama." The gun pressed against her temple. Her phoenix ring blazed suddenly, blindingly bright. Nathan's phone lit up with a text from Amy. "Mom says duck." The sprinkler pipes above James burst. As he stumbled, Rebecca twisted free. But Thomas had the diary's ashes, the birth certificate, the camera, everything they'd fought for, destroyed in seconds. "You've lost, Nathan," Thomas smiled. "No proof, no story, no family legacy. His death's been just a poor boy who reached too high." Police sirens wailed outside. But they were too late. Through the vault's small window, Nathan saw Amy collapse on live television, and in his pocket, Sarah's Phoenix music box began to play. The world seemed to move in slow motion. Through the bank's window, paramedics rushed to Amy on live TV. Inside the vault, the Phoenix music box played an impossible melody. "That song," Thomas stumbled back. "Sarah used to sing it to both her children," Robert finished quietly. "Didn't you ever wonder, Thomas, why our father insisted Sarah leave that night? Why he paid her to disappear?" The music grew louder. Rebecca's ring pulsed in sync with its notes. "Show them." Amy's voice came through Nathan's phone, suddenly clear despite being unconscious outside. "Wait. Show them what Mom gave me this morning." Nathan reached into his pocket and pulled out what looked like a USB drive, shaped like a tiny golden phoenix. "Impossible," Thomas breathed. "That was destroyed years ago." "Technology changes, brother," Robert smiled. "But Sarah's brilliance never did. She knew you'd look for tapes, papers, photographs, old evidence." Nathan plugged the drive into his phone. Sarah's face filled the screen. Not old footage, but a video recorded days before her death. "If you're watching this," Sarah's image spoke, "then everything has happened as I foresaw. Nathan, my beautiful son, forgive me for the burden I placed on you, but you need to know the truth about that night." The vault fell silent, except for the music box's melody. "Maxwell Sr. didn't die of a heart attack," Sarah continued. "He died protecting his darkest secret. A secret that would destroy not just the Maxwell empire, but tear apart two families forever." Thomas lunged for the phone, but Rebecca's ring suddenly flared. An invisible force held him back. "Nathan isn't Robert's son," Sarah revealed. "He's yours, Thomas." The music box crashed to the floor. "That's a lie," Thomas whispered, but his face had gone ashen. "You were so drunk that night," Sarah's voice continued, "angry at your father's favoritism of Robert. You never knew about the child. But your father discovered the truth. He tried to force me to end the pregnancy, to keep his precious family legacy pure. When I refused—" "The pool incident," Robert said softly. "It wasn't meant for me. It was meant for Sarah. For Nathan." Security footage began playing on Nathan's phone. The real recording from the vault camera. Maxwell Sr. arguing with Sarah. Her refusal to take the money. His rage. The truth about decades of family murders spilling out. "I hid the evidence," Sarah explained. "Not to protect the Maxwell name, but to protect my son. Your father would have killed him, Thomas, just like he killed anyone who threatened his empire. But I made copies, digital copies, converted years ago, hidden in plain sight." Rebecca's ring blazed brighter. Outside, Amy's eyes snapped open on live television. "Mom?" she whispered, cameras catching every word. "Is it time?" The music box began reassembling itself. "A mother's love," Sarah's final message played, "is more powerful than any empire. Thomas, I forgave you long ago. Now forgive yourself. Let the truth set us all free." James's gun clattered to the floor. Thomas fell to his knees. "My son," he whispered, looking at Nathan with new eyes. "All this time!" The Phoenix music box completed its transformation, revealing a hidden screen. On it played the complete confession of Maxwell Sr., recorded the night of his death. Everything: the murders, the cover-ups, the attempt on Sarah's life, and in the final frame, a young Thomas holding his newborn son, tears streaming down his face, before his father forced them apart forever. Police flooded the vault, but they were too late to arrest anyone. The truth had already broken chains decades in the making. Dawn broke over Manhattan as police led James away in handcuffs. The story was everywhere. Maxwell Empire heir found, decades of crimes exposed, miraculous hospital recovery. But inside the vault, a more personal drama unfolded. Thomas hadn't moved, still staring at the image frozen on the music box screen. Himself, 23 years younger, cradling his newborn son. "I remember that day," he whispered. "I thought it was just a dream. I was so drunk, so angry at father." His voice broke. "Sarah tried to tell me, but I wouldn't listen." Nathan stood frozen between his newfound father and the exit. A lifetime of questions crystallized into this moment. "Why did you hate us so much?" he finally asked. "Because you represented everything I'd lost." Thomas looked up, tears streaming down his face. "My chance to be better than my father. My one moment of real love, Sarah. She saw good in me when no one else did." Rebecca's ring pulsed softly as she took Nathan's hand. "The phoenix rises from its own ashes," she said. "That's what Mom kept telling me in my dreams." Through the window, they could see Amy giving her statement to reporters, standing strong despite her hospital gown. Her words carried through Nathan's phone. "My mother protected more than evidence. She protected hope, though. The hope that truth and love would eventually win, no matter how long it took." Robert stepped forward, placing a hand on his brother's shoulder. "Holmes, I knew the moment I saw Nathan at that interview. He has your eyes, Thomas. And Sarah's heart." Thomas stood slowly, decades of bitterness melting away. "Can you ever forgive me, Maiske?" "Mom already did," Nathan replied. "And she made sure I would understand why." He pulled out Sarah's diary. The real one, not the decoy Thomas had burned. "She kept a copy hidden in Amy's music box. She wrote about you every day, telling me stories about my father's good heart, trapped under years of family poison." Police entered the vault. "Mr. Maxwell, we need your statement." "My full statement?" Thomas straightened his tie. "About everything, Dodika. Starting with my father's first murder, in 1985. As Thomas left with the officers, Robert turned to Nathan. "The Maxwell Investments Board is meeting in an hour. They'll want stability, continuity. They'll want damage control," Rebecca interrupted. "They'll get the truth," Nathan said firmly. "And a new direction. Now, the Wheeler-Maxwell Foundation has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" Rebecca's hand drifted to her stomach, the phoenix ring glowing warmly. "A fresh start. For all of us." "Nathan!" Amy ran in, hospital bracelet still on her wrist. "Mom's gone now. She said her work was done." She hugged her brother tight. "But she left us this." She held up an old photo, taken the day Nathan was born. Sarah beamed at the camera. Thomas gazed wonderingly at his son, and in the background, a phoenix sculpture, its wings spread wide. "She always said the truth would set us free," Amy smiled. "She just didn't tell us we'd have to die to our old selves first, to be reborn." Nathan looked at his newfound family. Thomas signing his confession. Rebecca glowing with new life. Amy stronger than ever. Robert finally unburdened of decades of secrets. The morning sun struck the vault's window, casting the shadow of a phoenix across them all. Sarah's final diary entry caught the light. "Love doesn't count chromosomes or bank accounts. It doesn't care about family names or empires. Love simply loves. And in the end, love is the only truth that matters." The autumn sun painted Central Park in shades of gold as Nathan and Rebecca exchanged vows beneath a canopy of maple trees. Small, intimate, everything the old Maxwell family would have despised and everything Sarah would have loved. Amy, now healthy and radiant in her bridesmaid's dress, squeezed Thomas's hand as he prepared to walk Rebecca down the aisle. The past 6 months had transformed him. Gone was the cold corporate titan, replaced by a man learning to love again. "She would have loved this," Thomas whispered, watching Nathan adjust his ties. "Sarah always said true wealth was measured in moments like these." The wedding string quartet began playing a familiar melody, the Phoenix song from Sarah's music box. But Rebecca appeared, resplendent in white, her growing baby bump barely visible. Her phoenix ring glowed softly against her bouquet of white roses. A year ago, Robert began his efficient speech. "A photograph in a black frame changed all our lives." But looking back, I realized Sarah had orchestrated everything. Every moment, every revelation, every step toward healing. In the front row, James watched from between two federal marshals, his testimony against Maxwell Sr.'s old conspirators, earning him this brief reprieve from custody. His eyes held not anger now, but a quiet acceptance. "The Wheeler Maxwell Foundation's first free hospital opens next month," Amy whispered to him. Everyone deserves a chance at redemption." Nathan and Rebecca exchanged rings, simple bands with tiny phoenix engravings. As they kissed, the autumn wind swirled leaves around them in a perfect spiral. "Look!" Amy pointed to a nearby tree. A red cardinal, Sarah's favorite bird, watched the ceremony, its feathers matching Rebecca's ring. The reception was held in the renovated old bank building, its vault transformed into a memorial for corporate accountability. Photos lined the walls. Sarah, through the years, watching over the family she'd fought so hard to protect. "To new beginnings," Thomas raised his glass. His hand trembled slightly as he added, "and to second chances." Robert unveiled his wedding gift. The Maxwell Building's name changed to Wheeler Maxwell Tower. "Some legacies deserve to live," he said, "and others need to be reborn." Later, as sunset painted the sky phoenix red, Rebecca found Nathan staring at Sarah's photograph. "She's still watching over us," Rebecca said, her ring pulsing gently. "I feel her sometimes, when the baby kicks. Mom says she'll have Sarah's eyes." "Mom?" Nathan asked softly. Rebecca smiled. "She comes to me in dreams now too. Says the phoenix ring chose me for a reason. To help rebuild both families into something new. Something better." Amy joined them, holding Sarah's diary. Listen to what she wrote the day you were born, Nathan. "Today I held the future in my arms. Not just my son's future, but the future of two families bound by love instead of power. The phoenix must burn to be reborn. Our pain will become our strength." Thomas approached cautiously, still sometimes unsure of his welcome. But Nathan pulled him into a tight embrace. "Dad," he said simply. Above them, the cardinal sang Sarah's melody. As night fell, the phoenix ring cast gentle shadows on the wall. Wings spread wide, embracing them all in its gentle light. The wheel had turned full circle. What Sarah had protected with her life, her love had finally brought to fruition. A family reborn from its own ashes, stronger for having been broken, more precious for having been lost, and more beautiful for having been redeemed. 1 year later, snow fell softly outside the Wheeler Maxwell Medical Center as Amy completed her first rotation as a resident physician. Through the windows, the Manhattan skyline glittered, the Wheeler Maxwell Tower standing proudly at its center. "Dr. Wheeler?" a nurse called out. "Your brother's here." Nathan waited in the lobby, holding his infant daughter. Little Sarah, named for the grandmother who'd changed everything, slept peacefully in his arms. Her tiny hand clutched the phoenix pendant Rebecca had fashioned from her ring. "There's my favorite niece," Amy beamed, touching the pendant. It warmed beneath her fingers, just like it always did. "Ready to go?" Nathan asked. "Dad and Uncle Robert are already at the cemetery." The family gathered at Sarah's grave, now marked by a beautiful phoenix sculpture. Thomas knelt to brush snow from the base, revealing the inscription, "Love is the only truth that matters." 1 year, Rebecca said softly, one hand on her growing bump. "Twins this time. Sometimes it feels like yesterday we were all strangers." "We were never strangers," Thomas replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Sarah made sure our hearts would recognize each other when the time was right." Robert nodded toward the Wheeler Maxwell Tower visible in the distance. The foundation's new ethics board approved funding for 50 more free clinics nationwide. Sarah's dream of accessible healthcare for everyone is becoming reality. "And James?" Amy asked. "His testimony brought down the last of Father's old network," Thomas said. His sentence was reduced. "He's doing good work in the prison hospital program." Baby Sarah stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Deep brown, just like her grandmother's. Above them, a cardinal landed on the phoenix sculpture, singing the familiar melody. "The annual report came in," Nathan shared. "The Wheeler Maxwell Foundation has helped over 1 million people this year. Free healthcare, education grants, corporate accountability initiatives." "Mom would have loved that number," Amy smiled. "Remember how she used to say, 'Every act of kindness ripples across generations'?" Thomas pulled out Sarah's diary, now preserved in the company's museum but brought here for this moment. He read from the final page. "To my children, blood and chosen, Never forget that true legacy isn't built on power or wealth, but on the lives we touch and the love we share. The phoenix rises not for glory but for renewal. Let every sunrise remind you that second chances are sacred, forgiveness is strength, and love is the greatest revolution of all. As if in response, both phoenix pendants, Amy's and baby Sarah's, began to glow softly in the falling snow. Rebecca gasped suddenly, hands on her stomach. They're kicking. Both of them, right where the pendant. Amy laughed. Mom always did have perfect timing. The cardinal song grew stronger, carrying on the winter wind. Fuzz. For a moment, they could almost hear Sarah's voice in its notes, her love echoing across time, across generations, across the divide between heaven and earth. Nathan looked at his family. The sister who never lost faith, the father who found redemption, the uncle who kept faith, the wife who helped rebuild, and the daughter who carried forward a legacy of love. In his pocket, he felt the smooth edges of the black frame that had started it all, now holding a new photo. Their entire family, together at last. Above them, the snow fell like phoenix feathers, and somewhere in the distance, a music box began to play. "Love you, Mom," they whispered together, and in the golden light of a winter sunset, the shadow of the phoenix sculpture spread its wings across them all, not as an ending, but as a promise of new beginnings yet to come. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that love is the strongest force in the universe. What would you have done in Nathan's shoes? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want more powerful stories about family, redemptions, and second chances, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Remember, just like the phoenix, our greatest moments of transformation often rise from the ashes of our deepest struggles. Quote.